What'd the score end up then? Fucking 34-6 or something?
Lost count. There was that many fucking tries at the end.
Yeah. 34-6. Okay, 10 seconds.
So it snuck over. Some people bet overs on that.
Total close like 36.5. Okay. Alright guys, we're live. G'day and welcome once again to the Tripod, where we break down every single NRL game every week from a betting perspective. This week we'll be recapping round 2 in the NRL. Not our best week this week. We had 4 wins to 7 losses, so certainly not the week that we would have expected after going 14-3 in round 1, but still only a small loss and we are still up overall. How are you, Jacob?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate. And we're here every Sunday after the final game, rain, hail or shine, and there was all of those in round 2. And we were just talking just then. I think people can hear us talking, so maybe we shouldn't too much before we go live. But, you know, thank God for betting. I mean, that game seemed tight for the first 30. I don't think there was a single point. And in the end, it's funny, the betting implications of all those late Tigers try, the Warriors completely giving up. It goes over. If anyone bet the overs, you would have thought you were absolutely cooked with the rain and with, 0 points and no try until, last few minutes of the first half. It goes to show betting can make even the worst game exciting. What happened on the footy field there was basically the Robbie Farah show, with a little cameo from Benji there. It's crazy, isn't it? But we kind of said we predicted this, that they would have a little bit left in the tank, and whatever they had, they'd show it. And what you have to like about the Tigers is what we've said every week, that they will not beat themselves. They will make you play well to beat you. And from the Warriors' point of view, they were awful, and I really feel like we have to definitely pump the brakes on thinking that they could be decent this year, because the form line of the Bulldogs, which we'll get to later, might not really tell us much about how good a side is if you can beat the Dogs.
Oh, definitely. And, I guess first game, we'll go through this game first. Obviously, it's the one that we just saw. Tigers absolutely demolishing the Warriors, 34-6. We didn't have a play on the game. And I guess what I wanted to say is, in the rain, it's like, you just need to fucking complete your sets. Like, it's not that hard. Tigers completed 90% of their sets. Warriors completed less than 2/3 of their sets. So I think between around 62% of their sets they completed, which is absolutely not good enough in that sort of weather. And the Tigers just ground them down. It wasn't that they played, much better footy, but it's just in that sort of weather, if you can hold the ball, keep ball possession, and complete your sets, you're going to win that game.
As well as smarter fifth tackle options, and that's, the spine won it in the end for the Tigers. The Warriors, we've still got question marks there of whether this Kieran bloke's the answer.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's backtrack to Thursday night football. We had the Rabbits beating the Dragons 34 points to 18. We didn't have a play on that game either. I was siding with the Dragons and Jacob was siding with the Rabbits. Obviously, ultimately, Jacob was right in that one, but the Dragons started really well in that game. And I just found it funny. They were just completely gassed by the second half. And look, I can put that down to one of two things. It's either they were tired from the short turnaround to Townsville, with a 5-day turnaround, or they're just coming into the season unfit and they're really missing Frizzell and DeBellin, in the forwards. I don't know what it is. But they were great in the first half, and then they just absolutely folded in the second half. The Rabbits are kind of what we expected, or maybe even better than we expected. We said that they'd be good at the start of the season while everyone's still healthy, and they certainly showed that.
Yeah, it is a combination of all those factors. Definitely it's tough to have to back up, Saturday night to Thursday night. And you mentioned you're missing Frizzell and DeBellin. We don't know when he'll be back. They lost Leeson Armour, and they replaced him with Corbin Sims this season, but Sims hasn't played a game either, so the pack is depleted. Then you're trying out new combos in the spine as well, so they're just in all sorts, the Dragons. And the Bunnies, we've said, they're a crisp team that, looks a lot like the side that finished the season really well, in 2018. They're playing really well under Benny there. And you're right, the Dragons looked to be up for that game. It was a real tale of two halves, as if the team swapped jerseys at half time, but they absolutely got rolled over, and it's very worrying signs, very worrying times for the Dragons, because there's no immediate hope in sight until DeBellin's kind of nut heals up. Sorry, Frizzell. DeBellin's nuts is a different story.
What have you heard about DeBellin's nuts? It was weird. It's just like, it wasn't like it was bad defensive scheming or anything that they were short on the right-hand side every time. I think it was dead set they were too tired, and so they were just too bunched on defense. It's very, very strange. Anyway, next game, early Friday game, we had the Storm beating the Raiders 22-10. We had 2 plays on the game. That was one of our better games. We did win both of those plays. I guess as we expected, Storm were just a little bit too clinical for the Raiders. The Storm defense is awesome, and that's why last year we made a lot of money betting, Storm opposition teams under their team total, which we did again in this game. The Raiders under 8.5 points in the first half. I think they may have scored 0 in that first half. But take nothing away from the Raiders. I know that I said they're a very good team this year. I was very high on the Raiders, and they didn't let go of the rope there. They stuck in there. They lost by 12 points, but didn't completely give up. So one thing I did want to add in regards to this game is players have really struggled with conversions this early in the season. And I'll get to that on the next game as well. But we had 6 conversions here, only made 3. So if you're looking to bet unders, I'd say you're on the total points under rather than the tries under. Am I a little bit frozen? Can you hear me? Hear me at least?
I can hear you there, and it was pretty resilient by the Raiders to hang in, because I think it was a Vunivalu hat-trick, and they were down at least 16-0. And then it was a game. I think they pulled within a try with, 15 to go. So a little bit similar to the Storm's first round against the Broncos there. But the Storm, you can see now maybe why I did pick them for the minor premiership. It's a clinical team, and I do think that, what you lose in Slater, Jerome Hughes is still playing so well. They get so much from Adokar and Vunivalu and Munster. And in Smith, it's like having your coach on the field there with you around. So the forward pack is very solid, and they are another side that do not let the opposition have anything easy. And I actually think the bookies have underestimated kind of the quality of the Storm. We've laid a small number of points for them 2 weeks in a row and won relatively easily both times.
Yeah, absolutely. And then next up, what most people thought would be the game of the round was the Broncos beating the Cowboys 29-10 at Suncorp. Unfortunately, we were on the Cowboys in that one, and we did go 0-3. Just a really clinical performance by the Broncos. At Suncorp, what's happened to Jacob here? I have no idea what's happened to him. It seems like he's completely cut out. Anyway, he's back.
Am I back?
You're back, mate. The Broncos, I guess we should have maybe seen this coming. We did think that the Cowboys were at least an equal to or possibly even slightly better team than the Broncos, but the Broncos really, really showed up. The long rest offer a lost first round to the Storm, and we know how clinical the Storm are. But the Broncos, with that quick play of the ball and spreading the ball a little bit earlier, was just starting to click a little bit better for them. I mean, it really didn't help the Cowboys. You lose Taumalolo at halftime, and he was pretty much hobbled until halftime. You lose Nene McDonald at halftime. Michael Morgan did not look 100%. He looked to be carrying an injury there. So just a lot of bad things went wrong for us in that game.
Yeah, I hope you can hear me, because I can see even my own image appears to be frozen, but
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Moving around. Look, yeah, that's one of those games where you dead set. We obviously were on the wrong side of all 3 of our plays. One of them, with the Cowboys to score more than 14 points, gets decided by video ref call after the siren. Another one of multiple moments this round where a decision that meant nothing towards the final result, but we were on the edge of our seat there. And we bet on the Cowboys to score more than 14 because we liked overs in that match up on Friday night. It did go over.
Fuck's sake.
We didn't take that. We took the Cowboys over, and they somehow only managed 10 points. But it's a tough one. Were we wrong? Because Taumalolo wasn't really out at half time. He was out after 5 minutes. And all this talk that Tabita Pangai Jr. won the matchup there. Well, Taumalolo strained his knee a couple minutes in, and same was Nene. He was out very early into the contest. So, I mean, if it was Pangai Jr. and Corey Oates that were out early for the Broncos, could the Cowboys have won that game? And even then, the Cowboys did keep it close. But you have to give a lot of credit to Brisbane. They were more aggressive. The forward pack definitely stepped up. And Pangai Jr. is a guy who I've said could be the next Taumalolo, and he did have a whale of a game. And Brisbane were too good. And that game there started a bad run for us. And we have to kind of reflect a little bit on Sunday about where we went wrong. The next 4 games, including this one, Brisbane beating the Cowboys, we had 4 teams that were basically top 6 last year that all lost in round 1 and all improved in round 2. And we bet against 3 of them. And we won't make a habit throughout this year of betting against good teams off a loss, because that is often where you do get that kind of razor focus and an all-in effort. And we had our reasons in each game, but it did bite us because we were up against a really good performance by the Broncos and the games we'll get to next.
Oh, definitely. And similarly with the Sharks beating the Titans 20-6, we did like the Titans in that one once that line crept up to 8.5. I mean, you know, I can't really fault us for taking that. I mean, it was 7.5 on all other bookies. We got the hook at the 8.5, and we liked that line. You know, that line was not available come game time. So I still like to kind of think, you know, not results orientated, I guess. I know you have to watch the games and kind of distinguish whether you're on the right side or not. But a good way of telling if you're on the right side or not is, did you get a better line than where it closed at? And I mean, backtracking to the Broncos-Cowboys game, that line closed 3.5. You know, and we got 4.5. That's a good bet. Similarly with this one, 8.5s were not available come game time. But the Titans, yeah, they're going to take some time to integrate those halves. I know it's obviously the first game with the new halves in there, and they just really struggled. But look, Jai Arrow was the one shining light there. The guy had nearly 300 meters, absolute monster. But in regards to the Sharks, I thought they were decent. I didn't think they were that fantastic. I mean, the Titans made a lot of errors, and I think a more clinical side would have probably put more than 20 points up on them. But yeah, the Sharks are a solid team, but I didn't think it was an outstanding performance from them.
Now, this is only a short pod, but just tell me if I can do any adjustment. Can you see me, or you can't, or I'm frozen?
No, I can see. I can see you now fine. You just had the Skype symbol for a while.
I just can't see myself, so it's putting me off, but that's probably a good thing. And I was hoping
that's
for
true.
others.
Hopefully others can't fucking see you.
Now, this game, yeah, look, we were borderline when the line was 6.5, 7.5. We kind of felt that the Titans missing their halves was going to be crucial. And then it was just Thursday, just the ability to get 8.5. We did feel that the Titans pack could be every bit as good, and we grabbed it, and you can't regret that. And you watch the game. I mean, first of all, for people who didn't see the game, there's a very, very marginal call where the Titans scored a try early in that game, and it's overturned by the video ref where it was an obstructed view. And if you want to tell me the ball, you know, rotated 3 degrees and it's a knock on, okay. And they overturned the on-field call, said no try. About 3 minutes later, the Titans score again, and on-field it's given a try. Again, they look at it, and with those held up calls, it's sometimes with bodies all wrapped around the ball, it's very hard to really tell, did a part of the ball touch the line or not. For me, I was cheering. I walked out of the room kind of happy that we had a good start in this game. And then I came back to see the bloody Titans playing the ball. But that is absolutely ridiculous that the video ref knows more than everybody else and somehow miraculously can say for sure that's not a try. So you had 2 overturned. Those were not the only 2. The Titans had several other tries overturned in that match. And you know what? In attack, the Titans were not good enough. They were pretty crap. You mentioned Jai Arrow, 300 metres. About 150 of them was them handing it to him 10 metres out from the goal line, expecting him to charge over. And that was their goal line play with Ryan James too. That's not going to work against a decent defensive team. So I think the Titans were pretty woeful in attack and still had more than enough opportunities to cover that game. So I'm not going to write them off because at the end of the day, it was exactly the way we predicted. The halves cost them the game. Impressive performance by the Sharkies at home to get their first win of 2019.
Oh, and it's bullshit. We have plus 8.5, and the Titans even have a chance to score there right in the dying seconds. But no, of course they can't. And then in the next game, not the next game, but it is the Panthers beating the Knights 16-14. Panthers get their first win of the season. We did have one play on the game. It was for the Panthers to be winning at halftime or full time at $1.83. They were winning at both, so we cashed that one. I thought it was a pretty even game. I thought the Knights played well. Thought that the Panthers played well. Take nothing away from either team. I still don't think that Ponga should be in the halves. I think you discussed that last week. But the story of the game was fucking James Maloney's defense. It's not often that you can say that Maloney's defense wins them the game. But two great defensive players, a try-saving tackle and then knocking the ball loose when the Knights were in attack. So, I mean, that game is all on Maloney. Very, very good win for the Panthers. But it was funny, like even this one, we were on the Panthers, but money came late for the Knights and pushed that line from 2 when it opened all the way up to 3.5 by game time. So either there was people out there that really didn't want to be on the Panthers or some sharp punters out there that really liked the Knights.
Yeah, that was the game of the round. It was, there were some mistakes in there, but it had a bit of everything and it was back and forth and it was, went down to the wire. And in a way, I was actually impressed by Newcastle once they found themselves down 8 in the second half. that they did apply a lot of pressure to the Panthers. And you mentioned that, the game ultimately basically gets decided by an amazing defensive play by Maloney. Though I do think the Panthers were the better team, and I also think that they didn't do themselves any favours with their fifth tackle options. There were so many times where they kicked, and it was a beautiful kick, coming out of their own half, and how many just trickled over the dead ball line and gave the Knights 7 tackle sets, and they did invite a lot of pressure on themselves. And I think there was one where Cleary put a bomb up in the air, shanked it, and then dropped it. They could not get a result on fifth tackle, so they couldn't put the Knights to sleep. But in the end, they were lucky. I mean, in the end, also, Ponga, who shouldn't be in the halves, is not a great goal kicker either. Missed a couple of conversions, and 2 points is the difference. And it was enough for us to get back in the winner's circle with the Panthers leading at either break.
Indeed, and then moving on to the Roosters beating Manly 26-18 in absolute monsoon weather down there in Sydney. We had one play on the game. It was Manly plus 4.5 in the first half. We debated this for a while. The line had moved all the way down from 10.5 down to 6.5, obviously with the Cronk and Friend news. The line was 6.5, we could still get 4.5 first half, or we could get 8.5 for the game. We debated it for a while, we ended up going with plus 4.5 in the first half. Of course that one loses, and of course Manly gets a late try to cover the 8.5. Let me just say this, it's a fucking monsoon in the first half, right? Why do the Roosters look like they've played in the rain before? Why do they look like they're passing like regular people? They're running like regular people. They're not falling off tackles. And Manly looks like they've dead set never seen a drop of rain in their life in the first half. They're playing so cautious. It's like they don't want to pass it at all, where else Roosters are just running their regular sets. I was baffled at how bad Manly looked in the rain. Then the rain clears in the second half, and wow, what do you know? I understand that they were down and they were throwing the ball around a bit more, but I mean, you've got to be able to play your normal game, even in the rain. I understand you have to be a bit more solid, but they just looked like they did not have a clue what they were doing out there. Really good to see Luke Carey absolutely turn it on. He was the best player in the game for mine, and it's cool. I understand that Cronk is awesome, but it's good to see what Carey can do when he's out. I mean, his kicking game was phenomenal. One thing I will add is that Brad Parker is not an NRL level player. There was 2 times there he got caught on the edge, trying to catch a bomb that dead set looked like a child that is learning to walk, was putting their hands up trying to catch a balloon at a birthday party. It slipped right through his hands twice in a row, and they scored off that. So he should be getting dropped. That is unacceptable from an outside back.
Just trying to remember, where have I seen that before? Oh yeah, I've seen it. I've seen Brad Parker play before. So yeah, that's becoming pretty common occurrence. I mean, Trent Barrett had to be having a little chuckle at that. You're not meant to be able to score a bunch of points and throw the ball around and create at a high skillful level in the rain. You touched on it. It was the Keary show. Keary is a real star, and credit to a guy like Tedesco as well. We think that he could be as good as any player in the NRL. It's not just his brilliant ability to bust tackles and, to run in open space, but his skills as well. He did have some tricky kicks coming at him in all directions from Cherry, and he was flawless in the first half as well. And they were just a class above, and that game really did illustrate. I have no regrets taking plus 4.5 first half with Manly, even though once they're down 10-0, it looked like they were no chance to score, but it really does go to show how much of a momentum game rugby league is. You have 26 straight points put on by the Roosters, 18 straight by Manly to end the game, and so with momentum being such a big factor, if you waste one opportunity, or it just goes to show one moment can really turn a game, and Manly actually did have opportunities in that first half when it was probably 4-0 and even when it was 10-0, where if they could have got in there. You always like catching the points. It was bloody biblical rain at Lotto Land that night, but they were so bad in that first half. And you mentioned the lack of skill highlighted by the fact you're starting a guy like Brad Parker, but compare that to when Roosters have superstars like Manu and Latrell that they can throw the ball to. It was a mismatch. And Manly, I mean, at least they've got something to work on into the future weeks, that late 20-minute surge.
Yeah, absolutely. And we thought Manly would show up, but we just didn't know that it would be fucking 40 minutes late. And then we got a win in our last game of the round, well, the second last game. The Eels beat the Bulldogs 36-16. We had the over 36.5 points. That one closed a lot higher. That closed closer to 40 come game time. We just thought that, after all those low-scoring games in the rain last week, in a sunny afternoon game, they should be able to score some points. But we actually didn't realise that it would start raining some in the second half. But it was all too late. I mean, the Bulldogs, I talked about this last year, how, they say to themselves, all right, we're going to start trying to spread the ball out more. And they come out the first 10, 20 minutes and they do. And they look good. And then for whatever reason, they'll get a lead and then they go back into their shell and then they do this garbage one off the ruck on fourth tackle, sometimes even on fifth tackle last year. But that's it. That first 20 minutes, they look great. And then for some reason, they just stop spreading the ball. They stop playing how they were in that first 20 minutes. I think they may have gotten a little bit tired as well. I'll tell you what, the Eels were looking good. I know that the Bulldogs kind of folded in that second half, but you've got to look at fitness as well. This Eels team looks fit. They were running the ball hard for a full 80 minutes, so I think they've got them in shape, and they've got to be absolutely stoked for 2 wins in a row for the first time in, a fucking decade or something.
We would have been on them too. I mean, we cashed the overs, which is nice. We liked the Eels. If they hadn't lost 3 players from round 1, we probably would have been on them because we said, after a great performance round 1, they'll want to capitalise and win a very winnable game. And again, as Dylan Brown impresses you, Moses looking good, and Fergo, you've got to give a shout out to him. I mean, the big performances, and we should have, you mentioned Jai Arrow yesterday and Fergo today. We said we both had him in the New South Wales team when we picked the side we thought was the strongest Blues side. He should have been there last year. Obviously wins a premiership, comes to the Eels. I said, he's got his big money contract, but he's not playing in the same caliber side. Is he going to bring last year's form? And he has, to be totally fair to him. And it has to be in the Origin fray. And, what Fergo did this afternoon, and it swung this game. I spoke about momentum before. You said that the Dogs started well. If people didn't see the game, 10-0 to the Dogs. And next thing, it was 30-10. They were down. It was a 12-10 halftime score as well. And you say you don't know what happened. I mean, there were 2 intercept tries. One of them was Fergo when the Dogs had an overlap. So those things totally flip a game. But having a game-breaking outside back is just so important in the modern game. Look at the Eels last year. What was their biggest downfall? Perhaps it was losing Semi Radradra. The Cowboys on Friday night, if I can go back to that game, they just have nobody in the outside backs they can throw to and scare the opposition. And you throw to a bloke who can create something, especially once Nene went out for the Cowboys. And look at a few sides like that, like the Titans. Who is there in their outside backs that you throw the ball to and he just might beat a man and he might break a tackle? But a guy like Fergo out there, such a weapon to have. And the Eels, we said they're a confident side, plenty of confidence in that team. And the Dogs, what do they do now? Pumped in round 1, pumped in round 2. I tell you, Reece Martin's got to be in this side, and Nick Meaney, the guy that they've bought from Newcastle, has got to go to fullback. Hopewadi's got to move into the centres. Obviously, you have to make changes now. You're stuck with the same 17 and the shat the bed second half.
Lockie Lewis might be good at some point, but dead set, I did not know what happened to Foran. He was okay, but he used to be an absolute superstar. He used to be a fucking beast.
Well, yeah, I know. I was a huge fan of Foran, and he's part of, premiership winning, grand final making teams with Manly. But I really feel in his case, it's his body has betrayed him. And I heard an interview with him last year, and he was laughing, making a joke of it, saying, I've got the hips and the back of an 80-year-old. It's good that he can laugh it off, and I feel bad for him, the amount of injuries he's had. But
he's carrying too much weight on his fucking head.
I wouldn't be laughing if I was the Dogs and I'd given him $3 million for the next 4 years or whatever, and he's laughing about how he's got the back and hips of a 60-year-old. That doesn't bode well. And yeah, you saw when Fergo took that intercept, he was absolutely labouring to pretend to put in a chase, running about a quarter of the speed of Fergo, and he was so relieved when a few blokes went past him. He's like, I don't have to put in the token chase. He can't move around the field, and I feel bad for him. Maybe you got to bring Jack Cogger into the halves as well, the other recruit from the Knights, because Foran's just not a match-winning half NRL level anymore, unfortunately.
Totally agree, and that is the round. I see some comments flowing in that we need to hurry the fuck up, because for you people out there that like maths, not saying that we like watching maths, but for you guys out there that enjoy Married at First Sight, that is starting in about 8 minutes' time. So I know nothing about maths. All I've heard is that it's the big confession today.
Well, look, I don't watch maths either, but on a Sunday night, I hear it actually started 20 minutes ago. So we should wrap it up.
Yeah, let's
wrap it up. Like a Christmas present, mate.
All right, let's wrap it up, guys.
Back next week. We're still 64% on best bets through 2 rounds. Can't be too unhappy with that, and we'll be back added on Wednesday night.
No, absolutely not. And people are complaining this week, but I mean, if you'd had $100 on our singles and let's say $50 on our multis, you'd still be well up over $1,000 over the first 2 rounds. So can't be complaining about that. We will catch you guys on Wednesday night, same place, 6 p.m. Queensland time, 7 p.m. for you guys down south on this page to break down round 3. Catch you then.